There we are. Hello. Praise the Lord. Welcome to Morphite Ministries Live number 17. We finished up last time talking about the times that Jesus was amazing people with his miracles, with the things he did. We looked through 4 different passages there. And so that was a lot of fun. It was neat to see some of the specific times that happened. There are more, of course, and I always encourage you to dig deeper, go further, look into the things that God's showing you in the Word, and bring it out, dig it out. If you see something poking up through the surface, that's your job, that's your imperative. So I welcome everyone here today. Let me turn this on. Okay, now you can see my face. Hey, this episode I was praying about, and I was looking at some of the different, like I've shown you before, I have a pretty big list of things that I feel the Lord wants us to dig into at some point or another. If you can hear all that racket in the background, that would be my dog. She is wide awake and ready to go. She is a mixture of Rottweiler, Labrador, and Pit Bull. So she's violently affectionate and very enthusiastic about everything. So I love her. Anyway, her name is Gus. I'm talking about you. This morning I wanted to start in on, because over the weekend, of course, if you are watching this live or anytime within the recent or soon after it comes out, we recently had all of the kerfuffle set off in Israel and with Hamas and Palestinians and all that mess. And I was looking at that and I was like, well, Lord, I don't really talk about current events on this particular, on this live stream. It's more of a study thing. And then as I was looking at it, I realized that for myself and for others, I'm sure would be curious to look and to know, well, what is the biblical origins for this idea, for this conflict? Why do the Jews feel so strongly that they deserve the land? Why do the Palestinians feel like they deserve the land? Why is there such a heated conflict between these two people groups? And so I thought, well, let's dig in. And I can't tell you that I know all the answers, but I know we can find answers in the scriptures because these are biblically related topics. A lot of people automatically assume anything happening with Israel is prophetic in some way. And while there is some mention of some similar things going on in the scriptures, as in prophecy about end times, this particular conflict, as of right now, we don't know that it's fulfilling any particular prophecy. We just don't know that yet. It could possibly, but it's not for sure. But of course, anytime any conflict sets off in Israel, anybody who knows the Bible at all starts paying attention, because okay, what's going on? These are according to the Bible, God's people, right? Israel is, and the Jews. So you might be unfamiliar with all of those ideas. That's fine. We're going to dig into some of that. So let's jump into this. Again, my computer is not able to do a screen share, so if you're listening to this, you're not really going to notice a difference, but if you're watching it, you're just going to see my lovely big head, so apologize for that. All right, which is funny because the camera works anyway. I just did a search of Palestine, because I know the word Israel is going to show up all throughout the scriptures, so I was like, well, let me drill down and let me search for the word Palestine. And the first place that I saw was in Joel chapter 3, verse 4, and it's actually the only place that word shows up in English in the King James Bible, the actual word Palestine. And that's in Joel 3, verse 4. It's which says, "Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head." So obviously this is someone that God is, this is a prophecy being given out, and God is not exactly in favor of these people. He doesn't have a good relationship with Tyre and Zidon and Palestine. Let me look here, though. Let me add in the Hebrew. Let's see here. So I can look at the Hebrew wording here. So this word Palestine is a word, Philistia is what it says here. Peleshet, which is Hebrew. So then I decided to shorten it up a little bit, because a lot of times with names or with certain words like that, if you're doing a word search in English, it helps to shorten it from the end of the word, right? So you can find all the variations of that word. So for example, if I wanted to find the words for runs, running, etc., I would put just run, and it would come up with all of the different variations of that word, if that makes sense. But if I type the full word running, it's not going to give me any verse that comes up with the word run, because it's only going to look for something that's running or longer. Runningness. I mean, that's not a word, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's the way that the search works. So I shortened it up a little bit, and I just typed in Palesti, Palesti. And there's actually several places where the word Palestina shows up. And in other translations, that's in King James, in other translations, they render it as Philistia. And as I'm looking at this here, I'm seeing that it's actually the same Hebrew word for all of these, where it shows up translated as Palestine or Palestina, or in some of the other translations, the same verse, it'll show up as Philistia. So we need to look then at this root word in Hebrew and see what's up with that. So let's look at that then. Let me I got to put my notes together here. So we're talking about the biblical origin of Israel versus Palestine. And we'll copy down our word first of all of this Palestine, or it's actually Peleshet. And let's look it up here. And here it means land of sojourners, Philistia, the general territory on the west coast of Canaan, or the entire country of Palestine. So Canaan, of course, is what the land was before Israel took it over in the biblical days. And so on the west coast would be on the west coast. Let's pull up a map here so I'm not saying this wrong. You know what? I might actually be able to do a screen share. Let me see this real quick. We'll do it live. Screen capture. Oh, ho, ho. I can. It's going to be messy, but here we go. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pull up a map of Israel. Let's just find one that looks like what we want, so we can look what we're looking at here. Yeah, I think this will be a good one. And let me actually take this screen share part. I know it's a mess, and we're gonna make this. I don't need to share this part at the bottom or this part at the top, and not even really a lot of the sides. And I've been resizing the wrong thing. Okay. This is what happens when you do everything live. It's a mess. And as for me, it can make me a lot smaller. There we go. Okay. Back to this. All right. So we're looking here at Israel, and I apologize for the dead air. Getting this put together here. Okay, so we've got Israel here, and then it was talking about this area on the west side was considered, and where was that? On the west coast of Canaan, or the entire country of Palestine. So there'll be Philistia, land of sojourners. So this term is not referring to a people. This is referring to a place. So that's something to remember. It is a proper noun in Hebrew. All right, so let's copy that down. This Philistia. Oh, but you know what? There's a button for map right there. Look how smart I am. And also shows up at Pelishti. So we'll look up that term as well. This place occurs about 299 times. That's interesting because in English, it only shows up as Palestina or Palestine a few times. But apparently it has overlap with the word of Philistia. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm not copying that part. Ah, okay, that's showing me my... So let's go to this map then and see what they're showing us here. I didn't know they had map links on Step Bible. That's kind of handy. See what it loads up here. Oh, cool. Well, it's showing circled Tyre and Sidon up here. So I'm looking for where we're talking about. There's Tyre, there's Sidon, and oh, there it is. Duh. Okay, right down here where it says Philistia on the bottom left side here. So Sidon's at the top there, then Tyre is a little bit below it and along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, and then all the way down here it says Philistia. So let's just, for point of reference, let's look up and see here in our, this is a more modern map here. It's showing the same area though. You can see the Mediterranean Sea there. You can see Israel and all of that. And down here you can see, a little too much. Down here you can see there is the Gaza, what they call the Gaza Strip, which is between Gaza and Khan Yunis and that area there. All right, and I don't know when this particular map, it says Guide to the World, Israel Political Map. So this is after several different things. It shows the 1950 armistice line, 1949 armistice line, the 1994 treaty, etc. So this is relatively modern delineations of areas here. So let's compare that with what we have here, and we see it's a similar area, this Philistia area, and that's kind of interesting. You see you have it, it's across from the Dead Sea there, and here we have, there's the Dead Sea, and there's that. It's not exactly in the same place, but it is pretty similar area, which is interesting because we're looking at a map of the Bible days from, let's see, well, it'd be at least, what, like 4,000 years ago-ish? 3,000 maybe? And over here, we've got a map from modern day, and we're seeing it's a similar area. And I know it's not exactly the same. Let's see if we can find out. There's Ashkelon, Ashdod, Rehovot. Let's see if any of these places match up. There's Ashdod and Ashkelon. Okay, so Ashdod and Ashkelon are right there, and those are kind of in the center of this Philistia area as it's delineated here. Ashdod and Ashkelon. Okay, so the Gaza Strip that is today what's called the Gaza Strip, which is where the Palestinians are located now, is lower. It is lower south from Ashdod and Ashkelon, which was the region of Philistia in those days. So it's close, and there's some overlap there. You see Gaza in this older map is within the region that's called Philistia. So we are talking about the same land area roughly. I know the borders don't match up exactly, but it is around the same area, which is interesting because, again, this is thousands of years later, and these aren't even the same people groups necessarily that were there at the time when this place was called Philistia back in Bible days. So ain't that interesting? Okay, so I'm gonna put that down as a note. It's hard to put a map as a note, so I'm just gonna write that Gaza Strip. I'm gonna leave the link to the map on there too. The Gaza Strip today is relatively the same area as Philistia from I mean, I know it's not exactly exact, but I like saying Bible Times, so we're going to put from Bible Times. And I'm going to link that, I'm going to call this map 1, and then I'm going to link to map 2. Which is going to be this newer map area, okay? And those of you who are just listening are just kind of listening because this is a visual visual lesson on this part here. Philistia equals the land of sojourners, so I'm going to put that there. And it's the general territory on the west coast of Canaan, or the entire country of Palestine. Okay, and our Hebrew word is H6429, Pelishet. All right, so we're learning some things already. Philistia and Palestine have overlap, have some physical overlap of where they are located. So that's interesting. So I found this article, if I can pull it back up again here. This is from GreekReporter.com, and they go through and they're talking about, did the Palestinians come from the Philistines? And of course I'll put a link to this on there as well. Did the Palestinians come from the Philistines? I'm just going to put that as the note there. And it's an article about that, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. However, it does have some interesting information in it because these words are similar, right? And we see already in the Bible that sometimes they're translated, the word Philistia is translated as Palestine or Palestina. So then that begs the question, well, are they just the same thing? Are the Palestinians the Philistines of the days of old? Well, as this article talks about, since the Philistines were completely destroyed, since the Philistines were completely destroyed during the 6th to 4th centuries BCE, it is clear that no modern nation comes from them, including the Palestinians of today. So where did the Palestinians come from? That is the question. The answer to this question is both simple and complicated. It is simple that the term Palestinian refers to the people who historically lived in Palestine, originally including the Jews as well. The Greeks began using the term Palestine to refer to the whole region between Egypt and Phoenicia. So this entire area they would call Palestine, the Greeks did. This term does come directly from Philistine. The Greeks used this for the whole region because they were obviously more familiar with the coastal nation of the Philistines than the inland one of the Israelites. Because the Greeks came from further, where Greece is, which and further on the other side of the Mediterranean, or it's north, I believe. Let's see. Eventually, after the Jewish-Roman wars of the 1st and 2nd centuries CE, the Romans began using the term Syria Palestina for the entire area formerly covered by Judea and Samaria. This term for the region remained popular, evolving into the Palestine of modern times. Gradually, in modern times, the people who lived there started identifying as Palestinians. So here we see that the word in the Bible that is Philistia is referring to the area, the region, and Palestine kind of evolved into the term Palestine. However, that does not mean necessarily the Philistine tribe who lived there originally. And of course, there were multiple different tribes who lived in that area. The diverse origin of the Palestinians, because the term Palestinians emerged in modern times simply as a designation for those who lived in Palestine. It originally included a variety of ethnicities. So this is like in the United States of America today. There's people who, we have what people call America, or the USA, or the United States of America, and that is the region that is contained by the borders of this country, as long as those borders remain. But if I say I'm American, that doesn't really tell you what my ethnicity is, because this country is a melting pot. Those borders contain a lot of different people groups in different areas, and depending on where I am from within this country, if I'm from the south, from the north, from the east coast, the west coast, etc., my lifestyle, my culture, the way I express myself, all of those things might be quite different. The way I speak, you have areas where there's Creole, you have areas where there is Spanish spoken more than English, these kind of things. So just saying, well, they were one of the Americans, yeah, there's some general overall cultural things that apply there, but that doesn't tell you what my ethnicity is or how I got to where I am or what language I speak necessarily, right? And of course, the official language of the United States of America is English. However, I might speak more or less of another language depending on, if I come from Chinatown in the middle of a big city, I may never speak English and I only speak Chinese because I'm a Chinese immigrant, right? And because of that, you would need a little more information. If you're looking back at this period from, far in the future and you're an archaeologist and you're like, oh, they're American. You can't just make the assumption then, well, they speak English and they wear this and they do this and they wear blue jeans and they have an American flag hanging off their porch. That might be true for a lot of the country, but that doesn't apply to everyone, if that makes sense. So we're talking about here the region of Palestine, the region of Philistia, but the people within it are not necessarily the biblical tribe of the Philistines. All right, I hope that is clear here. We'll look a little more into this. However, most people living in Palestine, when this distinct nationality began to emerge, were Arabs. Therefore, the majority of Palestinians are Arabs. In fact, most of them are Muslim Arabs, but Christian Arabs in Palestine also identify as Palestinians. Traditionally, most Palestinians trace their families back to Arab tribes who settled in the area at the time of the Islamic conquest of the region, or even before. So this is in AD at this point, because Islam did not exist officially or in a structured way before Muhammad. Yet those Islamic conquerors did not completely wipe out the earlier population. Undoubtedly, many of the Jews and Samaritans survived this conquest and had descendants. So from what it looks like, as he says here, therefore some of the Palestinians must be of Jewish or Samaritan descent. It is a mixed group of people. It is not a unified ethnicity group such as you would find in many countries who have remained the way they are for a long time. For example, like the Jews, they're very taking from the Old Testament beliefs and all of that. They are very strict about wanting to only, culturally, they enforce this idea of only marrying Jews and only being with Jews and all those kind of things. They like the idea of being racially pure, if you will. And there are different people groups who are this way, even if they don't carry any racial hatred. They just want to remain their own group. They say, okay, I'm part of this particular ethnicity and I'd rather stay within this particular ethnicity and only propagate this ethnicity because they have some kind of national pride or whatever. And this is the difficulty too in the modern day, where you have so much universality and so many different people groups intermingling, and there is no longer this idea of, hey, if you live in this country, you're from that country and you are a descendant of the people of that country. Well, so many countries have been taken over, have been let go, the borders have been shifted. At this point in history, it's very difficult to find people groups who are from that land and have always been from that land, right? 9 times out of 10, even if they are the ones who say, hey, we're from this land, this is our land, originally it belongs to our ancestors, you trace it back far enough, hey, they took it from the guys who were there before that. So at this point in history, there's very few places like that left. If there are any and you want to give me a shout out and throw in the comments, let me know. Reminds me, nope, don't have any chat yet. Okay. Therefore, some of the Palestinians must be of Jewish or Samaritan descent. The Samaritans, for their part, came from an enormous mixture of tribes from all over the ancient Assyrian Empire. They arrived in Samaria after the destruction of the northern 10-tribe kingdom of Israel in the 8th century BCE. In addition, we can hardly imagine that the Babylonian and Greek conquests wiped out every single Philistine family. Even though these conquests wiped out the Philistines as a national or ethnic identity, there must be some descendants today. Of course, that's conjecture, but did the ancient Philistines become the Palestinians? In conclusion, the modern-day Palestinians did not emerge directly from the ancient Philistines of biblical times. Rather, the term Palestinians describes the population of modern Palestine. It's a population primarily comprised of Arabs. This population arrived in the area principally during the Islamic conquests of the Levant. In addition to this primarily Arabic component, many modern-day Palestinians must also descend from ancient Jewish and Samaritan families. Furthermore, some ancient Philistine families must have descendants, I would say must is pushing it, but okay, among the modern Palestinians, although they're completely imperceptible as a distinct group, right? So it's not directly the descendant of the Philistines, although they have taken up in the region where the Philistines, basically where the Philistines lived, right? And we saw that with the map that we looked at already. Okay, so there is our first our first peek into this is that Philistia is the land of sojourners. It's the territory on the west coast. From the Bible days. The Gaza Strip today is relatively the same area as Philistia from Bible times. I did not know that, and that makes sense now. Did the Palestinians come from the Philippines? Technically, no, but possibly. But also, yes. Okay, so let's look up this word then, this Hebrew word. So now we know that this is referring to, in the Bible, when this word Philistia is used, not the word Philistines, which is talking about a specific tribe, but the word Philistia, it's referring to this region. Let's look that up in the Bible and see what we can find. That is H6429. Also, it says it's named Pelishti, which is Philistine, H6430, and we'll look that up as well. So we'll look up 6429 first. So let's do our search here. H6429. Which we'll just be looking in the Old Testament because this is, that's all it'll find. Okay, Philistia, there's two forms it says. It's interesting. So it's Pelishet and Pelishti, which is Philistine. So as Philistia, okay, so it occurs more often, that's interesting, more often Pelishti shows up, which is Philistine, people from that area. It occurs 8 times as Philistia, referring to the place. Let's look up just those 8 times that it shows up referring to the place. We're out of time, so we're going to have to start in on that tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Thursday, probably Friday. And we'll see what the Bible says about this area of Philistia, and what we can learn about what that means then for today and the people who are in Palestine today. And we'll also, as we go into this, I don't know how long this particular series will go, but we'll also start digging into then the promises to Israel to be in the region, to own the land, and the different borders that were promised to them by the Lord. And we'll see how far we'll go into that. This could be a pretty deep study on everything there, but we'll go a little bit into it just so we get our heads around what's going on there, and does it have biblical implications or understanding that we can glean. And of course, this being the Holy Land and the land where God promised the land to Israel and all of that, yes, there are things that we can learn from the Bible about these things. So praise God. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll be catching up with you again on Friday. I don't know tomorrow if I can get back into the eschatology stream or record something for that, and if I can, I will, but if not, then we'll catch up with you again on Friday. God bless. Thanks for joining us.